Yep, you are. And I guess I'll start taking the names. Okay.
Good morning, Tim. Good morning. First of all, thank you for just the hard work that you've done and going through this process. And I appreciate the time that you've taken to meet with me and answer my questions privately, and also meet with members of my community. So I guess where I'll start, and I do have several questions. I think it's going to be quite a process. I think that initially being skeptical with regards to just perhaps how young you are, but I have found that you are extremely talented, good at what you do, and you answered those questions for me as far as, you know, sometimes there are more officers who have experience on the job than you have years of life. And you had indicated that one of the things that your role is to sort of bring people together and process information and show them a fair process. How have you so far been able to address a department where there are officers there that have many years, your senior skeptics? How have you handled that process? Have you run into any skeptics? And what are your thoughts on that?
I assume everyone I interact with is a skeptic. And I assume that because, like you said, many of these people have been police officers longer than I've been alive. As I mentioned when I started, this has been a humbling experience. And one of the reasons I've been able to successfully earn the respect of so many people in the department, even those who I know were skeptics in the beginning, is because I've been very honest with them. I don't pretend to be a cop. I don't pretend to have 50 years of experience. I am who I am. I bring a certain skill set to the table, and I'm going to use that skill set to best serve the department. And then I need to put together a leadership team that is able to assist me in making the right decisions for the department and the county. And I think the ways in which I've been able to win people over, and trust me, I know my work is not done in that sense, but the way I've been able to so quickly win over so many people is honesty and transparency. The interviews that we've conducted in the department are unprecedented. Police officers have not been, historically, invited to the commissioner's office to sit down and tell him whatever they want. And to the extent that there are skeptics on this legislature that they weren't honest, I assure you they were. And they were honest about problems in the department, and they were honest about me. And the reason they were is because I created a culture from day one where that was encouraged. That is a 180, a complete 180 from the culture that existed in October of 2015. And I'm not going to shy away from that fact. And that's very important to understand. So when you come in from day one and you promote transparency, you're having conversations, you're doing interviews, you're doing command tours, you're promoting the right people for the right reasons, you're putting people in control, in positions of authority, who have universal respect, who have significant substantive experience, who have clean internal affair records, that's a good beginning. And as I said, there's more work that needs to be done. But my leadership team is tremendous. I tease them, I call it the dream team. It really is stacked, and we're all reform-minded, we're all energetic, and we're looking forward to bringing this department forward.
Tim, I'm going to switch gears now, talk a little bit about the district that I represent, Huntington Station. And I'm very fortunate that I feel that I have one of the best communities to represent. Not every legislator will say that, but we've all had our challenges, and within Huntington Station, because of concerns with the heroin issue, gangs, and then even seeing some issues with gun violence and murders. And I know that there's been a lot of work that's been put into the community, but the community in and of itself, as a result of this, where you have long-standing citizens that have raised several generations that are there, that have said, you know, enough, we're not going to take this. You know, Huntington Matters was born out of that. And I appreciate you sitting down with them. From your meeting with my constituents, and Huntington Station being one of the critical downtown areas that have had this concern, what have you learned so far, and with regards to some of the things that have currently gone on? Do you have any thoughts or things that would kind of put my constituents at ease with a commissionership under yourself?
I think the first part is making the police department accessible to the community groups. And I've met with several people in your area, and generally speaking, they have a positive perspective on their relationship with the police department, not without some criticism, but generally speaking, it's positive, and I think that is a great step forward from where it was not too long ago. With that said, the constituents I met in your district and the community groups I've met in your district, they require the highest level of service. They demand it, and that is, I just have so much respect for that. And I know it probably makes your job even more difficult, but it's very it's uplifting to see such civic involvement in that area, and it's a great thing. So one, we'll be continuing to meet with them and picking their brain about ways we can make Huntington safer and better. They have direct access to the precinct commander, and they all know that. We have a new, I'm sorry, I was just got confused for a moment. We talked about ways they can communicate with the precinct. One of the things I did when I had all these meetings, I said, look, here's my cell number, you can talk to me, open door. But that doesn't mean you can go to the precinct commander or whatever other channel you have to the police department. I want the community to be able to interact with officers that they've developed relationships with, whether it's the CO or someone in the precinct at a lower level. But one of the things that I heard from your constituents is the 5 corners. I think what we should do, and I think it's all about collaboration, is sit down and speak with the town. I've already spoke with the town about ways in which we can collaborate. Sit down with the town, yourself, the second precinct, and develop a strategy to deal with some of the quality of life issues on the 5 corners. I think, I'm not of the mindset that the small things don't matter. So illegal loitering and public intoxication, those are things that we need to address. So I'm looking forward to working with you. I'm looking forward to working with the town on working on some of those issues. On a bit more serious note, there are open homicide cases that come out of the Huntington area. Open homicide cases solving homicide cases is one of the top priorities of the Suffolk County Police Department. As a federal prosecutor, that's what I specialized in. I specialized in cold case murders, so I understand that whenever we lose a loved one, the trauma is unbelievable. And when it's from homicide, it's from murder, it's even worse. And then when it goes unsolved for a significant period of time, the emotional trauma to the individuals who knew the person and loved the person, as well as the community, is immeasurable. So it's obviously about bringing a murderer to justice, but it's also about repairing our community. So what I say all this just to convey that we're going to do everything we can to solve those murders, including collaborating with our federal law enforcement partners.
And you met with the town board officials, you met with the school district, you met with my civics, you met with my community activists. And I will say this, that when your name was first announced, that I got a flurry of emails that was saying that you know, how can you support this? We need a bigger search. And you've been able to win over those people, but I'm going to ask you this question, and I'd rather it come from, you know, really from someone that has a heart to have a constructive process. When you look across the country and you look at large cities, and you could do like a Bratton or big names, where you see challenges at the top, what would be, in your mind, a reason for us not to say, you know, Tim, why don't you be interim, and why don't we go out for a national search? Is there, I would just love you to hear your thoughts about that. And my next question, following up to that, and this is going to be, again, and I ask this with all sincerity, if I look at you and what you've done, and again, I'm impressed. You definitely won at least my commitment to work with you and to try to see that you do, but you know, to get the support that you need. But my question is that if you were the deputy county executive in charge of being the liaison with law enforcement, and with some of the things that have brought us into like the national spotlight happening at the top of our department, where were you?
I was in the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York. That's where I was. So let me take the latter question first, and then I'll go to the former question. So let's just talk about some of the facts. We're all talking about here, obviously referring to former Chief James Burke and the federal indictment of James Burke for allegedly beating, assaulting a person in custody and then covering that up. That happened before I was in the county, and by the time I got into the county, the first wave of the federal investigation was over. When I came to the county, I didn't know who James Burke was, didn't know who Christopher Loeb was, and didn't hear the name Christopher Loeb for some time. The second wave, if you will, of the federal investigation occurred, to my knowledge, shortly before James Burke left the police department. The moment I was in a position to assist the United States Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of New York, I did. And I'm very comfortable with the decisions I've made. Now on the former question, I think, you know, it's important to have a confirmed commissioner to move this department forward now and not months from now. Chief Cameron and I have already begun the process of doing that. And I think it's important to have a leadership team who's not going to be an interim leadership team to restore stability and continue forward moving for the department.
Thank you. And then I know it's going to be a long process, but you can see obviously I'm an African American, and last night I was at the police promotion. Wonderful ceremony. I knew a lot of the officers that are there. They know that I am committed and dedicated to working with them, and my door is open. I'm committed to working with you. And I don't tend to necessarily notice proportions and numbers of things, but I saw an auditorium filled with almost 2,000 people, a stage that had 300 officers on there. And I saw 3 women, and I saw in all of those promotion groups, hundreds literally moving up the ranks. I saw one African American individual. And again, I'm a big person that believes in qualifications and process, and I know that there are challenges there, but when we start to look at a county that is, and I'm speaking just in proportion of, we're 50% women, there's a percentage of Hispanic people, and when I saw all of those promotions, literally hundreds of promotions, to see one African American, I could be wrong about the women, I thought maybe 2 Hispanic. That's that's got to be a concern. It's a concern for me because we know that that there's, as well as the actual execution of the duties of public safety, there's the perception, there's community perception. I just need you to comment on that.
I agree that we need a department that is more representative of the community it serves. We do not have enough African-American officers in the Suffolk County Police Department. We currently do not have enough Latino in the Suffolk County Police Department, although we're making significant progress on that front. I will say, regarding yesterday's ceremony, roughly half of those promotions were made under my leadership. The only female above the rank of captain that I could promote was promoted. And she deserved it, obviously. But, you know, I think diversity and advancement and opportunity is going to be a main priority of this department. You know, last night we had three Hispanics, so you weren't off at all. You were pretty close. And you know, I think it's very important to make sure that all people in the department who are worthy of promotion are considered and properly advanced. That's why one of the things that I was stern about from day one was every single promotion or transfer gets advertised. So if we're moving guys from criminal intel to narcotics or whatever, creating a new team like we did with the FAST team, it gets advertised and people can put in for it. And certainly diversity of background and experience is going to be considered in those decisions. Since I've been making personnel decisions, I've made personnel decisions regarding 7 individuals of color or females. And I want to keep considering transparency and diversity in personnel decisions moving forward. The next class coming in is more diverse than the last, so that's good news. Again, it's not, the number of Latinos in the next class is close to being exactly the number of Latinos percentage-wise in Suffolk County. African Americans, not so much. So we need to do more work on recruitment, and not only recruitment, but also mentoring and other assistance in terms of getting individuals through the testing prior to the academy and then during the academy. So my general response is I agree with you 100%. Making the Suffolk County Police Department more representative of the community it serves is a top priority of this administration, and we need to do that both at the recruitment level and the advancement promotion level.
Well, there have been, you know, really significant gains, and I'm looking forward. You know, it has to be an active process. We can't count on it being passive. And so when we say that recruitment, there literally has to kind of be a plan in place. And you know, tonight is a Black History program that I'm one of the speakers at, and one of the things that we've looked at is historically the relationship in Suffolk County in law enforcement and with the whole African-American relationship. There's been significant gains, if I could say it that way, over the years, and I do think that things are getting better, but we do think that we have ways to go, and I hope that in addition to recruitment, that there can be an active program, because the community really needs that. I think it really breaks down a lot of barriers, both with regards to communication and just an important perception. Definitely have a lot more questions, but and I've spoken, I guess, 20 minutes already, so with that I'm going to defer. Tim, thank you. I really appreciate you going through this process. I appreciate you working with me. You know, I'm looking forward to working with you.
I appreciate it, and I look forward to working with you, and you certainly live and serve in a great community.